Welcome back to Fantasy Fest 2025. I am Ryan Wormeli, joined still by Derek Brown and joined now by Dan Johnson from DraftKings. Dan, thank you so much for hopping on today.
Worm, D-Bro, it's an absolute pleasure. D-Bro, the energy you brought for RJ Harvey just is absolutely galvanizing. And just got to throw a shout out. Love to hear what Andy Behrens and Dalton Del Don are doing over at the Deep Shot. Loved hearing about that.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
100%. Yeah, no, we're super happy to have you here. I think my biggest hosting mistake of the day is not giving D-Bro enough time on RJ Harvey.
I thought it was the disdain, the slow, like the slight disdain in your voice. We're back. We got Dan Johnson here, and yes, Derek Brown is still in the
D-Bro, I guess.
I heard it. I heard it too, D-Bro.
I was fixing to say the chat better tell us because I'm not crazy here. Okay,
D-Bro's only given us half his attention because he's still in the chat, which is shouts to you for doing that. But you're not you're on the show here. Let Mayor and Fitz and everybody else answer the questions in the chat. We got to focus on what we're talking about. What we're talking about this segment are some landmines to avoid. We've been largely pretty positive on this show so far. We are now going to get into maybe some guys that we are not so interested in. Quick reminder that all of our 2025 consensus rankings and tiers can be found at fantasypros.com/rankings. Dan, let's start with you. Who's the first player you're avoiding?
I am avoiding Devon Achane, and that's like less of a hot take now, especially after the great conversation between Erickson and Behrens because of the calf injury and Ollie Gordon kind of coming on. So I kind of want to, but he's, RB8 ECR right now. That's back end. That's like 18 kind of back end towards the second end or end of the second round. And I agree. There are just so many dudes there who are so good who I'd rather have than Achane. And like, I'm still completely traumatized by calf injuries ruining my fantasy baseball season. So I tend to stay away from those. So what I've got for Achane, instead of like the regular stats, I like Achane I want to avoid because, for example, in December, he's on the road 3 times in December with against the Pats, the Steelers, and against the Jets. And Miami's efficiency, especially when it comes to receiving, which is what Devon Achane was great at last year, 120 slot routes, 58 outside routes. You're going to see a downtick in that. Miami is 0-10 in games with under 40 degrees. And that's your fantasy playoffs. That's where you need your receiving gravy from the guy you're getting in the second round. And to me, knowing that Devon Achane is hurt, such as it is, that his efficiency with Tua, 23 games with 23 points per game with 9 points per game without, Achane just feels like, a product of his situation. And last year, his situation was messy, such that it became the perfect storm for he and Jonnu Smith. And I don't think that's going to repeat here in 2025.
What scares me with Achane, and I've said this before on the show, is that so much of obviously his success is like, oh, well, when Tua's playing, he does all this great stuff. And then when Tua's not playing, he's like RB50. Mm-hmm. And I don't like guys who, you don't have to just worry about them getting injured. You also have to worry about somebody else getting injured and severely negatively impacting them, especially when that other person who could get injured and negatively impact them is somebody with the injury history that Tua has. So it just scares me. And I totally can buy the upside on Achane, but I just look at the other guys going around where he's going in like the second half of the first round, early half of the second. I love the top 15 or so picks this year. It's why I want to have a late pick in drafts, because I want to get 2 of these guys. And Achane just isn't going to be one of those 2 because I can get Brian Thomas Jr., Derrick Henry, Ashton Genty, Nico Collins, Drake London. There's just the opportunity cost of passing up one of those guys who I think has just as high a ceiling, but not the same level of injury risk. Everybody has some to a degree, but not the same level of it, is just scary to me. D-Bro, where do you come down on Achane? He's RB7 in ECR right now.
Oh man, I got to move him down a little bit. I agree with all the points that Andy and Erickson were talking about. And my worry is a few different things. I worry that Miami's going to be a tire fire again by week 6, week 7. I worry that Tyreek's going to go full AB if they start off like 2-4 or 1-5 or something like that. Mm-hmm. Defense is still terrible. Everybody saw that like Jonnu leaves and everybody's like, oh, Achane's going to catch even more passes. Like, come on, man. Like, do you think he's getting like a 25% target share? Like, come on. Like,
I know.
He caught so many passes last year. It's not like he's going from like 60 to 80s. Like, seriously?
I agree. And, Tua's career low average depth of target last year at 5.7. If this offense is going to hope to normalize, I agree with you, Debro, that I think there's sort of just this reductive, superficial take out there that Jonnu Smith's vacation of 110 targets is going to mean that like at least 20 to 30 of them go to Achane. I think if this offense wants to normalize, we're going to see, I hope, a little bit more verticality from Tua that we saw in the past. And even so, even if that ADOT stays right around the same, I think Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are going to be.
Oh, Dan, you're tickling my fancy there, man. Like that's the way that I've gone with that, where it's like, if we're talking about the losing of Jonnu Smith, could we see Jalen Waddle go back to the low ADOT role of his rookie season? That's the direction I've gone with this. Like where everybody's like, oh, it's got to be Achane. And I'm like,
yes.
But what if we get low ADOT Jalen Waddle catching 100 balls now?
I would love to hear your take on that. I would love to hear your take on that, because that's where I think I'm leaning in terms of Tua.
Love that.
Yeah. Let's go, D, bro.
RJ
Harvey and Jalen Waddle.
Yes.
We've been getting questions. We've been getting questions about Jalen Waddle, and funnily enough, from somebody whose name is Dan Marino on here. So Dan Marino asking about the Dolphins receiver. But just to squeeze one in here in the middle of the segment, do we like Waddle as a good value this year? Either of you guys?
Yes. And I have Waddle ranked over Tyreek Hill, just to keep it a buck here.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have Waddle ranked above Tyreek Hill. I am not that brave. Good on you, D-Bro. But
we're crazy. It's fine. We can keep it honest here, Dan.
Yeah, but I mean, when you look at sort of that like wide receiver 13 to 20 range, you're starting to get into the 1As, the T Higgins, the Devontae Adams, and everything like that. I think Jalen Waddle's being forgotten as a 1A, and simply because Miami was so messy last year, and frankly, could get messy fast again this year.
All right, Debra, who's your first player to avoid?
Dude, it's DeAndre Swift. You will not catch me with the Ben Johnson steam. DeAndre Swift has everything about DeAndre Swift. Can we not just keep it honest here and say that everything outside of the Ben Johnson stuff, DeAndre Swift looks like the prototypical dead zone back. It is, everybody loves him because they're projecting volume. Everybody loves him because of Ben Johnson. And it has nothing to do with DeAndre Swift, the talent of the player. He's gotten a ton of volume over the last 2 years. And what does that amount to? Middling, low-end RB2, and some stretches of the season, RB3 type of production. And that's why I have him as an RB3. I think Kyle Monangai is going to factor into this backfield, whether you want to talk about early down volume or red zone or all of the things in between. And DeAndre Swift last year was outside of the top 32 running backs in explosive run rate, yards after contact per attempt, missed tackles forced, and yards per touch. So basically, essentially, every per touch efficiency metric we can pull up, DeAndre Swift was not good. But Ben Johnson riding in on the white steed, everybody's like, oh, DeAndre Swift. Nah, man, I'm not falling on that. Not falling on that landmine. Can't do it. Not going to do it. No way.
Dan, what do you think about Swift?
Yeah, I'm in the D-Bro camp here too. I don't necessarily. I think everybody's a little bit high on Ben Johnson trying to integrate Swift into a Jahmyr Gibbs role. DeAndre Swift really feels like that between the 20s, between the 20s back for me, when in terms of the high value touches that, just analyzing him on film last year. I mean, it's really hard with the offensive coordinator switch there and Caleb Williams getting his footing. But I feel like I've just been burned too many times by DeAndre Swift ceding higher value touches, especially in the red areas, to other running backs, even if he was the guy who made the 37-yard, reception screen pass to get us into the red zone. DeAndre Swift very rarely for me pays off, like when I'm watching a game and in terms of my fantasy draft. So I'll be fading him as well.
And also, as Erickson pointed out in the chat, what if the Bears go out and add Brian Robinson Jr. and he's the Jamal Williams in this offense? Like, it's not crazy. It could happen.
No, it's not. I do love that Erickson is putting Brian Robinson everywhere. Didn't he just an hour ago have him on Miami?
Yes.
Yeah.
Erickson's like, I know he's not going to be in Washington.
Yeah,
He's somewhere, everywhere, baby.
I said it in that segment. Erickson loves finding those connections.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's the Always Sunny meme. It's Erickson is connecting the dots, dude. I love it because he hits on a lot of those things too, man.
With Swift, just quickly, if you draft him expecting a floor and not a ceiling, I think it's okay. Like if you just look at his seasonal finishes, it's RB 18, 19, 22, 23, 19. I feel like his reputation is as more of a bust than those finishes would suggest. But I don't think there's a real ceiling there either. Yeah. So like the way I draft in the area he's going, I will be avoiding him because I want to get somebody with what I perceive to be a higher ceiling. But if you draft him with the floor in mind, then I think that's okay.
I'll push back on that, Worm. I'm not shading your draft strategy. I'm just saying I'm not drafting for third or fourth place. I don't care about floors. I care about ceiling. So I'll let the third or fourth place teams in the league or the fifth place team draft for floor. Give me the upside shots in those middle rounds. And that ain't DeAndre Swift for me.
Yeah, it's like what Barron said earlier when how rankings don't show the whole picture, right? Because rankings don't exactly necessarily dictate draft strategy, and draft strategy is taking shots. And but I do think that there are players out there or fantasy managers out there, to your point, Worm, that do want to draft at floor, and DeAndre Swift might have a decent floor this year with Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams ascending. There's a lot to like about the Bears offense in terms of a potential rebound.
I think Swift comes up on the clock whenever it's like somebody took an RB and then they're staring at their RB2 slot in draft and they say, I got to get an RB2. I got to draft one. Okay, well, Swift's there. Okay, last guy that's going to get volume as an RB2. Bink. And as soon as they hit the draft button, they're like, oh, what did I do?
This is why we have tools like the cheat sheet creator, where you could say, here are the rankings, but let me put these guys into the tiers I want. Let me put things on here like this is a target of mine, this is a fade of mine. You can kind of add those labels to the cheat sheet. So it's a really great tool, and it seems so simple, like, hey, create a cheat sheet, like everybody should want to do that. But the way FantasyPros puts it together, you can do cool stuff like put in a void or a target or a sleeper or the upside that you perceive a guy might have, so you remember on draft day, like, hey, I know he's ranked here, and maybe that's an appropriate ranking in ECR, but that doesn't mean he's a draft target. So be sure to check out the cheat sheet for everybody. I also want to remind everybody about DraftKings. Football season is right around the corner, and there's no better way to lock in your fantasy dominance early than with Best Ball on DraftKings, where you draft once and ride your roster all season long. Right now, DraftKings is giving all customers a can't-miss offer. Draft one, get one, enter a lineup in the $15 million Best Ball contest for just $20. You'll score another Best Ball ticket to play free for a share of $15 million. And giving you a second shot to win big. It's easy. Just draft your team once, no weekly management required, and let your top scorers automatically start each week across the whole season. Every breakout star, every clutch play, every touchdown will count toward your quest for a share of $15 million. Debra, who are some of your favorite Best Ball targets this year?
First of all, I've already taken advantage of this promo. I'm drafting a ton of Best Ball teams on DraftKings, dude, but I'll give a 3-pack of players real fast before we get back to our landmines. Dude, Tony Pollard at RB25 on DraftKings is a ridiculous value. The volume, everything he's doing and going to do in an improved situation. Devontae Smith at a wide receiver 3 price tag is just free money, even though I know that he's not fully healthy right now. He's been a wide receiver 2 every single season over the last 3 years. And Evan Ingram at tight end 9, dude. I'm just going to keep buying into the Denver Broncos offense. What do we talk about? Joker roll? You want to talk about Peyton, Nix, all the things in between. Ingram's got top 5 upside, top 3 upside at tight end. So you're going to give me low end tight end 1 prices at DK? I'm jumping on it, dude. All day.
Dan, do you have any favorites?
I'll add one to what Debro said right there, and it's similar to what I believe it was on Erickson's top 5 exposure on DraftKings. One of my top 3 exposure is Jaden Reed. I think he's priced just perfectly right now, and I think everybody should be jumping all over him.
I think that was Erickson's number 1 player that he mentioned.
Yeah,
at the top. Yeah. So everybody, download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now to draft your $20 Best Ball lineup for a share of $15 million and get a second ticket to play free for a share of $15 million. That's 2 chances to win big without ever setting your lineup again. Draft one, get one, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. All right, back to the landmines we're avoiding here. Dan, you have Lad McConkey. It looks like you're wearing a Chargers jersey.
I'm wearing the McConkey jersey. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm kind of trying to jinx myself, guys. I love Lad McConkey, and he's a good lad. He has been since he's been a Bulldog, but yeah, unfortunately, I'm fading him at wide receiver 11, and not that much. Again, you're talking about sort of a little bit behind where Achane's being drafted, right? We were talking about that 18 to 20 range. Ladd McConkey is a true end of the second round, turn of the third pick right now for me. And last year, the Chargers scored 23 touchdowns, and McConkey was responsible for 7 of them. That's good for a 30% target share, and that's efficiency that I don't really think we should be banking on. I think in terms of banking on efficiency year over year for fantasy football is where it gets really difficult. But McConkey's red zone share last year was just around 17%, and he had a 6.3 red zone conversion rate. That's solid. That's not alpha receiver numbers. We've also got some organizational telling and some organizational mess. We lost Rashawn Slater as our left tackle. You have to knock off about 0.1 EPA per play for the Chargers offense because of that. Now, I do think the shift from Joe Alt to left tackle and Trey Pipkins to right tackle should be okay. But I do think that it is going to affect some time on task routes, and those time on task routes is where McConkey made his money outside of crazy efficiency. It's also a team that ranked in the bottom third in passing attempts. They had 510 last year, and I could feasibly see that going down into the 480, 490 range, what with Omari and Hampton and what, hopefully Najee Harris gets healthy. And yeah, so I think Ladd McConkey right now is wide receiver 11, back end wide receiver 1. He's more of a mid wide receiver 2 for me. I see him, I dropped him down to about a 70% catch rate, 13 yards per catch, and a 25% target share, and 25% touchdown share. And that landed him right at like wide receiver 28 for me. So
Debro, I find Ladd super interesting because when you first started seeing this season's redraft, like expert consensus rankings, I felt like everybody had Ladd McConkey at wide receiver 11. You could almost have just put him there in his own tier because everybody, you had their own order of wide receivers 4 through 10. You have your own order of wide receivers 12 through 17, but Ladd was always wide receiver 11. And now there's obviously stuff like with Slater's injury, like Dan alluded to, and some of this other stuff about the offense. A lot of people still really like the player, of course. Do you think wide receiver 11 is still an appropriate ranking for him, Debro, where everybody had him earlier? Do you think he should be moving down and maybe avoided?
I moved him down immediately as soon as they signed Keenan Allen. And if people don't think that that's going to impact it, then I don't know what they're looking at. Like Keenan Allen's target earning ability was still top shelf last year. Like he took a small step back in efficiency metrics, even the ones outside of Caleb Williams that he could control. But he was still extremely strong. Like I moved Ladd, and I had him at wide receiver 10 or 11. I kept bouncing on that, like on the daily. I moved him down to wide receiver 16, only because and the thing about Ladd is I think that he's going to be one of these defining players of the season because I see both sides of the coin. Like I wonder with the additions of Najee and Amari and Hampton, if we get same old Greg Roman who wants to run the ball, and there's a long history of that. The other part about this is where if anybody were to tell me that there was a 10-game stretch of Greg Roman where he was throwing at a top 12 clip, they were top 12 in pass rate over expectation, neutral passing rate, everybody would tell you that that's crazy and that couldn't happen. So it's like they've added a lot of pass catching weapons this season, like this offseason. And it's like, could we see the Chargers be league average for passing rate? It would be a big departure for Greg Roman. I think it's in the range of outcomes, but I think if we're playing the median and leaning on the history of Greg Roman, the more likely outcome is that they're bottom 10 in passing attempts. And if that's the case, yeah, dude, even with the crazy efficiency of Ladd McConkey, like I was playing this game like on the way to the expo with Pat. We were driving there, and I was like, okay, like who gets more targets? Ladd McConkey, Tedero McMillan. Who gets more targets? George Pickens or Ladd McConkey? T. Higgins, Ladd McConkey. Cortland Sutton, Ladd McConkey. Like Garrett Wilson, Ladd McConkey. And it's like, well, if that's all the case, and it's like in a lot of those ways, I'm saying the other person and not Ladd, then how the heck can I rank him as a wide receiver 1 still? Like right. I can't.
We've got 2 more players to get to in this segment, so let's jump to the next one. Debro, who do you have for us?
Dude, y'all can miss me with DK Metcalf this year. I'm just not in. I'm out. Like, please, for everybody in the chat, in the world, tell me what wide receiver has been productive in an Arthur Smith offense over numerous years outside of A.J. Brown, I believed in Drake London, still believed in the talent through Arthur Smith. Burned me 2 years in a row. Last year, we all kind of played this game with George Pickens. How did that work out? Not great. Now we look at DK Metcalf and, hey, look at it. We're back in on the same stuff again this year. Should we be? I'm not. Because you want to talk about passing volume. You want to talk about Arthur Smith. You want to talk about the marriage of Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers. And it is, again, a situation that's not being talked about that I think could be a full-blown mess with Aaron Rodgers dunking on Arthur Smith on a Pat McAfee show by week 6. Because stylistically, it is a terrible on-paper fit. Outside of the projectable volume for DK Metcalf, what are we leaning on there? Like last year, DK, 78th in separation, 89th in route win rate, 64th in first downs per route run per fantasy points data. All of those are terrible. You look at the history of Arthur Smith's offenses, and let's also toss this in here. Aaron Rodgers running around like he's going to do a Cialis commercial in training camp. What do we think he has left on mobility, arm talent, all the things in between? Heck no, man. I'm out. I'm not in. I'm all the way out on DK Metcalf. There's no way where he's going in his ADP that I'm taking that shot. Nope.
I get the case for him, but I don't agree with it. I am with you that I am out ultimately. Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm lower on him than expert consensus ranking. I have him as my wide receiver 27, and for all the same reasons. I mean, I also am high on Caleb Johnson. I really love what he's going to do or what he might do in this offense, and I think Arthur Smith might just lean on him a ton. I think Jalen Warren is still going to have a role. I don't necessarily see Pittsburgh's passing game being anything but fairly stagnant, and I'm ready to be proven wrong. I'll let other people just like Debro said, miss me with DK Metcalf. You guys can be right.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I'm wrong. I'm okay with it.
It is a terrible message. It's excuse me, a terrible marriage between those two. It's like everything Arthur Smith likes to do, Aaron Rodgers doesn't like. Condensed formation. Nope. Aaron Rodgers hates that. Playing from the gun. No, Aaron Rodgers not, playing under center. Aaron Rodgers not a big fan. Booting out on plays. Aaron Rodgers not a huge fan. This is, I think quietly Pittsburgh is going to be a mess by the middle of the season.
We put up a poll in the chat about if you are in or out on DK Metcalf. 58% are not drafting him this year. So it's actually I expected that number to be higher. Truthfully,
no one's mincing you, Debro.
No, I mean, but people know it as they should, man. It's like we've played this game over enough years where shouldn't the answer just be, Arthur Smith, wide receiver 1?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Maybe they're like, hey, his also athletic college teammate as AJ Brown, the only other guy to be successful in it, can do the same thing.
AJ Brown's a freaking mutant. We should know that by now too.
DK Metcalf physically is a mutant also, but I take your point. And again, I'm not disagreeing with you. Dan, let's go to your last player to avoid.
Yeah, I went with a quarterback. I like to end things where I began, and I knew JJ Zacharyson was going to be leading off the show, and I love all of his literature on year-over-year quarterback stickiness. So I'm going with Baker Mayfield for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's being drafted at an insane QB7 right now, and the classic regression cocktail that I think, based on my many years being a student of the late round QB here, is that 71% completion rate last year added with that 7.2% touchdown rate. That's a classic regression cocktail. The Bucs offense was awesome last year. But they also ranked second in yards after the catch, and Baker Mayfield had 967 passing yards on completions behind the line of scrimmage. They were also third in passing yards per game, but Baker's depth of target was only 6.8 yards. That was 32nd in the NFL. I think that in order for Baker to return his QB7 investment, you're going to need to see him continue to have that NFL best conversion rate on intermediate third downs, which he did last year at 63.2%. I don't think that stays. He was crazy good in the red zone. This stat surprised the crap out of me. He was inside the 5-yard line. He was 16 of 24 with 15 touchdowns. That's insane. Those again, I said earlier, banking on that sort of efficiency and year over year is something that I'm not necessarily looking to do. I love Baker Mayfield, and of the like situations and the ecosystems, he has the strongest, I think, of the three players that I've brought up here. But I just think for a QB7 price tag, he's a little bit too still. I know he does have some mobility to him, but he's more a pocket passer than he is not. And I'm not taking a pocket passer banking on that degree of efficiency last year at QB7.
I don't have anything to add as to the why. I will just add, just to emphasize, if there was one player I could pick for this segment, it would have been Baker Mayfield. Like I will have him in 0 leagues. If I do not get one of those elite, 4 guys who provide rushing and everything at the top, and Allen, Jackson, Daniels, or Hurts, I will be drafting my quarterback out of tiers 3 or 4. I will not be drafting a tier 2 quarterback. And Baker is like the highlight of those tier 2 guys that like I would just expect to regress. And it's funny. I heard somebody, I can't remember who said it, so I wish I could give them credit, but somebody else recently I heard make the point that because the Bucs went from Canales to Liam Cohen, everybody is just sort of saying like, well, clearly Baker will be fine because he's done it with 2, but like it might just be that they nailed that hire the first time they had to make it, in replacing somebody. Maybe they didn't the second time. Like we're all giving a lot of credit to Grizzard or to Baker under Grizzard, I should say, just because he's gone through the offense coordinator change before. I'm a little nervous, especially when there's so many quarterbacks I like going later than them. So like I strongly agree with Baker on this one. Debro, what do you think?
So I'm not burying Baker, but I do have him below a lot of the other guys in that tier. And it really just comes down to I don't want to pay the ADP price for Baker when Dan laid out fantastic points, and regression's going to hit. The question is how much regression. I still have Baker as a QB1 this year. I have him at QB11, but you're telling me when I can get Dak Prescott later, I can get Brock Purdy later, I can get JJ McCarthy later, who I all have ranked in the same tier, I'm going to take those guys because I can get them later. I think there's similar outcomes. I have all 3 of those guys ranked above them. And it's not hate on Baker. It's like there's going to be a certain amount of regression. And I think he's still going to be a QB1. But when I can get some of those guys around 2, 3, heck, maybe 4 rounds later, depending on the league size where you're at, then it's hard for me to press the button on Baker as much as I do love him when I can get guys in the same type of tier way later.
We got to wrap the segment, but just to get one question in here from the audience. Debro, where do you have Igbukah ranked?
I moved him up a lot, man, because of all the Godwin stuff. And now Jalen McMillan is out here. He might not even be back by the bye. That news hit today. And so this is clear, okay, well, I move Igbukah up to wide receiver 38. And to be honest, I might have to go a little bit higher, but I think the conversation for him starts in the mid wide receiver 3 range.
Dan, quickly, what do you think?
I agree. I think hearing about Jalen McMillan today, I had Igbukah at 44. I moved him up to 39 at the news. And I think that's just about the range where I'd be comfortable taking him.
Yeah, give me Igbukah over Shakir, Jennings. I'm probably going to move him up a little bit higher, to be honest. Even maybe over Olave. Yeah.
We'll go ahead and wrap up the segment here. That'll do it for me, but Fantasy Fest does continue on. We have hours more coverage to come. Up next on the stream is Chris Welsh, taking over for me with Pat Fitzmaurice and Dave Richard from CBS joining him. Dave is already suggesting he might have a counter argument for Baker Mayfield in our chat, so maybe they'll talk a little bit about that at the top of the segment. They're going to be talking mostly about running back rankings in tiers, though, as well. So be sure to stick around. Lots more to come here on Fantasy Fest 2025 for Debro and Dan and all the other people that we had on for the first 2 hours. I'm signing off, but stick with us. We got some more goodness coming your way.